Hare Krishna Maharaj, please accept my obeisances.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Okay. Yeah, Hare Krishna. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktavinda Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna
Jai Om Vishnupad Purnamhansa Pariprajaka Ashtotar Shri Srimad A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai Adanta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Sri Sri Radha Krishna Gopinath Sham Kund Radha Kundagiri Govardhan Ki Jai Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai Navadip Dham Ki Jai Jagannath Puri Ki Jai Ganga Mai Ki Jai Jamana Mai Ki Jai Tulsi Devi Ki Jai Bhakti Devi Ki Jai Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. Go Premanande.
Hari Hari Bol. Thank you so much, Maharaj. And thank you, everyone, for being here for Srimad Bhagavatam class with His Holiness Jayadvaita Swami. It is Wednesday, February 1st, 2023 in New York, a day later in Vrindavan. And we're reading in the third canto, 13th chapter, The Appearance of Lord Varaha. Tonight, we're starting with text number 47. And very much interested to hear your comments and questions, and share the links for these classes with your friends. And if Krishna Kaunteya Prabhu is here tonight, perhaps he'd like to lead the closing kirtan since we missed him last time. And we're glad you could be with us, Maharaj. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Kendra Prabhu. And thank you to all. Here it's Varaha Dwadasi, I think yesterday in New York. And tomorrow's Nityananda Trayodasi for us here in Vrindavan. And we'll be reading Chaitanya Charitamrita about, yes, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Saitam Bhagavan Urvim Vishvakshena Prajapatihi Rasaya Lilayoni Tam Apsunyasya Yayo Harihi. In this manner, the personality of Godhead, Lord Vishnu, the maintainer of all living entities, raised the earth from within the water, and having placed it afloat on the water, he returned to his own abode. Purport. The personality of Godhead, Lord Vishnu, descends by his will to the material planets in his innumerable incarnations for particular purposes. And again, he goes back to his own abode. When he descends, he is called an avatar, because avatar means one who descends. Neither the Lord himself nor his specific devotees who come to this earth are ordinary living entities like us. Ya evam etam harimedaso hare katam supadram kataniyamaya Shrinvita bhaktya shravayeta voshatim janardanosyashu vidhi prasidati. If one hears and describes in a devotional service attitude this auspicious narration of Lord Bor, which is worthy of description, the Lord, who is within the heart of everyone, is very pleased. Purport. In his various incarnations, the Lord appears, acts, and leaves behind him a narrative history, which is as transcendental as he himself. Every one of us is fond of hearing some wonderful narration, but most stories are neither auspicious nor worth hearing, because they are of the inferior quality of material nature. Every living entity is of superior quality, spirit, soul, and nothing material can be auspicious for him. Intelligent persons should therefore hear personally and cause others to hear the descriptive narrations of the Lord's activities, for that will destroy the pangs of material existence. Out of his causeless mercy only, the Lord comes to this earth and leaves behind him his merciful activities, so that the devotees may derive transcendental benefit. Om Jnana Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Militam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Sthapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupakada Mahyam Tathati Shapatantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Jitapatakamanam Shri Gurun Vaishnavanscha Shri Rupam Shagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Stam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savatutam Parivijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lodita Sri Vishakhan Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dina Bandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hori Priye Vanchako Patarubhyascha Kripa Sindho Pyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shiva Sadi Gaur Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Yaevam etam harimeda so hare katam subhadram kataniya mayana shinvita bhaktya shravayeta vashatim janardano syao janardano syashu priti prasidati. The harimeda so means Krishna. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says, Medasa means intelligence, that Parimedasa means the intelligence of the Supreme Person, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who by his intelligence takes away all the miseries of the devotee. This is auspicious. Subhadra. Subhadra means most auspicious. Is Katam, Krishna Kata, Varaha Kata, any Krishna Kata is auspicious because it uplifts us and brings us into touch with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Kataniya, it's therefore worth hearing. Kataniya Mayana. Kataniya Mayana, again, Vishnav comments that the Maya can mean mercy. So the Lord who has mercy, which should be praised. Or he says the Lord who has Swarup Shakti, which should be praised. His own internal energy, yeah. Prabhupada quotes it, cites it that way. His own Swarup Shakti, which should be praised. Prabhupada says, of the merciful by his internal potency. That's Swarup Shakti, internal potency. So the topics of Krishna belong to the internal potency of the Lord, and therefore they're worth narrating and they're auspicious. Whereas material narrations, Prabhupada said, are neither worth it nor auspicious to hear. So bhaktya, shinvita bhaktya, if one hears with devotion, or shravayeta va, or alternatively engages others in hearing, shinvita shravayeta, then the personality of Godhead, Janardhan, who's pretty within the heart, Ashu very quickly prasidati, becomes pleased. Srinvatam Swakata Krishna Punya Shravana Kirtana Pridyantastohya Bhadrani Vidhunoti Survitsitam. Krishna is sitting within the heart, and when he sees that we're hearing and chanting about him, then he becomes very pleased, and as a well-wishing friend, Suhrit, the well-wishing friend of the devotees, he cleanses the heart of all inauspicious things. Nashta prayeshu abhadreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya. And Bhagavat Uttama Shloki, Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtaki. In this way, one becomes fortunate enough to achieve the platform of pure devotional service by the mercy of the Lord. All right, are there some questions or comments? Vijay Krishna, if Lord Vishnu descends in his innumerable incarnations for particular purposes, what is the particular purpose for the descent of Lord Chaitanya? You don't know, Vijay Krishna Prabhu?
No, I don't know your answer.
Well, this is sort of just an invitation to discourse about that topic. I'd prefer if we had questions that were
related to Varahadev?
Related to the text and questions that we really wonder about. Otherwise, it's sort of, could you speak about this topic? Could you speak about that topic?
Yes, of course, Maharaj.
But let's stick closer to the text if you don't mind.
Yes, Maharaj, no problem.
Thank you, Vijay Krishna Prabhu.
You're welcome.
Anyone else? Okay. Tasmin prasanne sakala shisham prabho kim dulabam tabir lam lavatmabhi ananya drishtya bhajatam guhashaya swayam vitate swagatim padaparam. Nothing remains unachieved when the Supreme Personality of Godhead is pleased with someone. By transcendental achievement, one understands everything else to be insignificant. One who engages in transcendental loving service is elevated to the highest perfectional stage by the Lord himself, who is seated in everyone's heart. As stated in Bhagavad Gita, the Lord gives intelligence to the pure devotees so that they may be elevated to the highest perfectional stage. It is confirmed herein that a pure devotee who constantly engages in the loving service of the Lord is awarded all knowledge necessary to reach the Supreme Personality of Godhead. For such a devotee, there is nothing valuable to be achieved but the Lord's service. If one serves faithfully, there is no possibility of frustration because the Lord himself takes charge of the devotee's advancement. The Lord is seated in everyone's heart, and he knows the devotee's motive and arranges everything achievable. In other words, the pseudo-devotee who is anxious to achieve material gains cannot attain the highest perfectional stage because the Lord is in knowledge of his motive. One merely has to become sincere in his purpose, and then the Lord is there to help in every way. There's a lot there. Tasmin prasanne, when the Lord is pleased, as we heard in the previous verse, then shakala ashishan, he gives all blessings. Sakala means all, ashisha, blessings. And Kim Durlabham Tabi Alam Lavatmapi. But what is difficult for such a devotee to achieve? And yes, Kim Durlabham, what is difficult to achieve when Krishna is pleased with someone? By transcendental achievement, one understands everything else to be insignificant. Lavatmapi, insignificant. Ananya drishta pajatam guhashaya swayam pidate swagatim paraparam. When one is engaged in devotional service, ananya drishtya, not looking toward anything else, then guhashaya swayam vidate, the Lord himself elevates him. It's not that simply by my own effort I can be elevated to the transcendental platform. I have to do something. Otherwise, what's the purpose of the verse? One is being told, hear and engage others in hearing. But then the result will come by the mercy of the Lord. When the Lord is pleased, prasanna, then he reveals himself. What is that? Evaisha Vinirte Tunum Swam. It's in Kathopanishad. The Nayamatma Pravachanena Lapyo and the Medasa Na Bahuna Shutena. One can't achieve the Lord merely by attending conferences or by one's own intelligence. But when he's pleased with the devotee, he reveals his own form. So that's, and he becomes pleased. What makes him pleased? He's pleased when he sees that the devotee is hearing about him, and chanting about him, and that the devotee sincerely wants to serve him. Prabhupada makes this point, that the Lord is able to see the sincerity of purpose of the devotee. So if we want something material, and Prabhupada then says if someone's a pseudo-devotee, he's worshiping Krishna for something else, not to be, for insignificant gains. Then Krishna sees that, all right, take your insignificant gains. But when someone is sincerely engaged with the purpose of being reinstated in the service of the Lord sees that and grants him the highest perfectional stage, the stage of pure devotional service. In the purport, Prabhupada says that the Lord awards all knowledge necessary to reach the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It's not that one becomes omniscient, but whatever, Prabhupada also said that. He said, Krishna tells me whatever I need to know. So whatever we need, yena mam upayanti te, by which to achieve the goal, Krishna provides. Tadami buddhi yogam tam yena mam upayanti te. And then there's no possibility of frustration. One will succeed by the mercy of the Lord. All right, there's a whole batch of things happening in the chat box. Let's take a look and see what's going on. In 1 moment. Okay. Krishna. Hey, scroll down, Saraswati. The Lord's pastimes are unlimited and absolutely mesmerizing for anyone, and quite easy to get immersed in. So how can Mayavadis be so dismissive and ignorant? Also, it's so reassuring to learn how devotional service, and in fact, it's stated here that nothing is unachievable if Krishna is pleased, especially for those struggling in this endeavor. Yes, thank you. And we're reminded also that there's a lot happening in the coming days, Nityananda Trayodasi, and then on the 11th is the appearance day of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur and disappearance day of Srila Gaura Govinda Maharaj. Panchatattva says, it sounds like a devotee who approaches the Lord with material motives is not really a devotee at all, but a pseudo-devotee. Is there a distinction drawn between a devotee who's simply materially motivated and one who's endeavoring for pure devotional service in spite of his material desires? Well, I was wondering about that also, because sometimes, like in Bhagavad Gita, Artar Tarti Jigyasu Gyanisha Bharatarshabha. Krishna says that these are pious people, even though they may be materially motivated, like Dhruva Maharaj, or after some material gain, or they're in distress, or curious, or looking for knowledge, and that's why they're approaching Krishna. Even though they may have some motive, Krishna calls them pious and accepts them so that they gradually they come to the right point. So from one way of looking at it would be that we can call the same people pseudo-devotees because they're not really focused on devotional service, or we can call them neophyte devotees, or devotees who are still holding on to some material idea of material gain. But there are places where I think the distinction is quite plain, quite blatant. I was initiated with a man named Jay Mayo, who was a student at Brooklyn College. He was studying sociology of religion, and at the same time he was practicing Krishna consciousness. He was coming to the temple, he was chanting, and yes. And at the same time, he was sort of putting two things together, we thought, by writing writing about Krishna consciousness for his sociology of religion studies. So then he got initiated by Srila Prabhupada personally, and then that was the last we saw of him. And what we came to know was that he'd been attending our programs more or less as what they call a participant observer in the world of academia. And the completion of his participation was to get initiated. And once he was initiated, done. Then we write our paper, and we advance in our academic career. So I think most of us would agree that this is blatantly insincere. One pretends to want to become a devotee of Krishna, but one is chanting or following some program of devotional service without really intending to serve Krishna at all. So that's there. But Dhruva Maharaj also had a material motive, but because he approached the Lord, and because the Lord was merciful, Dhruva attained perfection. Oh, that's all right. Then Murray says, is there any benefit for people who hear the story of Varaha as if it was fictional mythology? Yes, there's benefit. Hear it this way, hear it that way. Somehow it's in their ears. Prabhupada said that someplace, that we go with our kirtan party and they're forced to hear. They're forced to hear. They may want to or not want to, but their ears are there and the sound is there, so the sound is entering. So the sound of Krishna Katha, even though one may have so many misconceptions, will be beneficial. It will be beneficial. So that the fortunate person will be disabused of the idea that this is simply mythology. But the person who hears with faith will very quickly get the result. And the person who hears with skepticism or with the preconceived notion that this is all mythological will get less of a result. Prabhupada gave the example that you have a fire and you have a pot of something. If you hold the pot right against the fire, it'll cook quickly. If you hold it 2 feet above the fire, 3 feet above the fire, 5 feet above the fire, some heat will be there, but it will be slow. The heating of the pot will be slow. So those who hear it as if it were fictional mythology, still they may get some benefit, but not as much as the person who hears openly. Srila Prabhupada therefore says in the introduction to Bhagavad Gita as it is, that the reader, he advises that the reader at least theoretically accept Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. I forget exactly the wording, but that was the essence of it. That, all right, if you're going to read this book, at least let's theoretically accept that Krishna is the personality of Godhead. For the purpose of our study, let's accept that. So then we've got at least one foot in the door where may still be holding in abeyance our final judgment, but at least we're considering, for the sake of understanding, that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And from there, we can make further progress and become convinced, yes, Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And again, if we hear from persons who think it's mythology, that will be practically, that will be worse than useless. Shavana naiva kartavya sarpochishta yutapaya. That kind of hearing would help us to hear from the non-devotees who think that it's mythology. But if a person who thinks it's mythology hears from a pure devotee, then his misconceptions can gradually be dispelled. Vijay Krishna, related to pleasing the Lord, preaching is of utmost importance. Gita 1869. Why does preaching give so much pleasure to the Lord? Well, first of all, there's 2 reasons I can mention. One is Krishna likes it. Everyone likes to hear himself. If I start talking about Vijay Krishna, and he's a professor and he asks many relevant questions, and he sings in his own unique way, which is very attractive when he chants the Maha Mantra, and on, naturally, Vijay Krishna will think, yes, well, maybe it's a little much, but it's nice. If you praise me, then I'll think, well, yeah, something. Who was that? Leela Shakti Dasi, Srila Prabhupada's disciple, was from Sweden and visiting London before she joined. And she came to the temple at Bury Place along with a girlfriend of hers from Sweden. They both came. And Tamal Krishna Goswami was there, and he was speaking with them. And he said to them that, oh, you're taking an interest. You must have been yogis in your past life. And she said, I knew that he was flattering us, but I thought, well, maybe. So we like it. We like to hear some praise. That's human nature. So Krishna, where does that come from? Janmadyasya. It comes from Krishna. He himself, he likes it. He appreciates being praised. Uttama Shloka, he's worthy of praise. He's the ultimate person to be praised. So he likes it. But apart from that, it's for the benefit of the conditioned souls. Mami Vamsa Jiva Loke, but Manashastan Indriyani, Prakritistani Karshati. Everyone is Krishna, part of Krishna, son of Krishna. So, but lost, struggling with the material energy. But by hearing the message of Krishna, they can be restored to Krishna consciousness, to their natural Krishna consciousness. So therefore, Krishna gives it so much importance. Tasman manusheshu kaschin me priyakritama. Not that one becomes so greatly dear to Krishna because Krishna likes to be flattered, but more because one is doing the greatest service to Krishna by helping to reclaim the fallen conditioned souls.
And Maharaj, if I may, is it that Lord Krishna wants to reclaim the fallen conditioned souls because he loves them?
Yes, of course.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Okay. Saraswati says, we know that sometimes Krishna not only doesn't fulfill the material desires of pseudo or neophyte devotees, but may place the devotee in certain, even dire circumstances by which that devotee's spiritual life becomes accelerated. So how does Krishna decide when to intervene in this way? When Krishna says, Yasyaham anugranami, when I become favorably disposed. When does he become favorably disposed? That, well, he has his own reasons. Sometimes because the devotee is desiring it. That's mentioned in the Nectar of Devotion, that one can become advanced in Krishna consciousness simply if a devotee is desiring that one become advanced. Krishna sees, yes, my devotee is desiring. So then he becomes favorably disposed. He became favorably disposed to Bali Maharaj in part because Bali Maharaj came in the dynasty of Prahlad Maharaj. So out of, what shall we say, out of love or gratitude to Prahlad Maharaj, the Lord blessed even his descendants, like Bali Maharaj. So that's another reason why Krishna may become favorable and take everything away, as he did for Bali Maharaj. Or Krishna sees, like Dhruva Maharaj, that Dhruva Maharaj was so sincerely going through so much trouble to worship me, to find me. So Krishna became pleased. And a small boy also. And that's natural. One becomes, children are natural objects of affection. This small child was trying to find me, and Krishna helped. And Narada was there. So by Narada's blessings also. Or Krishna, what can we say? He looks at it and says, oh, this is all nonsense. That's mentioned in Chaitanya Charitamrita, that this person's a fool. He's worshiping me for some material thing. So why should I give him something that will just have him come back again, dissatisfied? Instead, I'll give him the nectar of my lotus feet. So maybe because Krishna doesn't want to be bothered, you could say that, but that's perhaps overextending it, but Krishna looks at it and says, why should I do this? Give him this material rubbish. Let me give him the real thing. And another reason is Krishna is independent. He may just want to do it. Prabhupada said about his Guru Maharaj, he said, my Guru Maharaj just liked me, that's all. That's all. Krishna liked my spiritual master liked me. So if Krishna takes a liking to the devotee for whatever reason, out of his own free will, then he may intervene. Then he may intervene. Or he may see the sincerity of the devotee, that this devotee is afflicted by some material attachment, but he's trying so sincerely to become Krishna conscious. Let me help him. Dadami buddhi yoganta. Even if he falls down, I'll Chipram Bhavati Dharma, I'll uplift him again. Because he's sincere. So Krishna may take that into account. What is that? Tesham Jnanajam. What is that? Nashyam Yatma Bhavasto Jnanati Pena Pasvata. Tesham Evanukam Partam Aham Jnana Jam. Again, anukampa, just out of compassion. Krishna may simply be compassionate on the devotee and think, yes, he's trying, let me help. Tulsi Priya says, seems like the participant observer was being grossly unethical, even from an academic standpoint. I can't imagine an advisor going along with that sort of stunt today. Well, I'm not in the world of academia, so I won't comment. But from our point of view, certainly it was grossly unethical. Murray says, I should have added, if the teller also thinks it's fictional. Yes, if the speaker thinks that this is just imaginary, then instead of having a good effect, it can act like poison. So Sanatana Goswami tells us, don't hear. He doesn't say, if you still have some material misconceptions, don't hear. Everyone is urged, hear, hear, hear. But don't hear from those who are non-devotees. Avaishnava mukho girna bhuta harikatamrita. Even though it's harikatamrita, the nectar of Krishna Katha, one should not hear from the non-devotees. Tulsi Priya says, what about those who achieve a lot, but are later shown to be materially motivated? Is Krishna pleased with them, or is he using their ambition to accomplish his ends? Well, who am I to second guess Krishna? Sometimes we see that people, anyway, this combination is there in the neophyte stage or conditioned stage, a mixture of motives, material and spiritual. So Krishna can look at that however he wishes. If Krishna uses someone to achieve something, even that is to their benefit. Even that is to their benefit. If I'm materially ambitious or materially qualified in some way, and Krishna uses me, that's my good fortune. Future hope of further progress despite my material ambitions. And somehow he's helped, he's contributed something. Swalpamapyasya dharmasya trayate mahato bhayat. Swalpamapyasya, even if one does a little bit, or you can say even if he does something substantial, but because of material motives, something still is there. Su alpa, something, a little bit of good is there, for sure. So that's their good fortune. That's their good fortune. Somehow or other, let him serve. Therefore, Prabhupada's life membership program was conceived with these understandings. It wasn't just to get money, but it was to benefit the life member. The life member might have been thinking, yes, I'll get to stay 3 days anywhere in the world. I'll get this, I'll get that. So maybe he was materially motivated, but the devotee who approaches him has the motive, and Srila Prabhupada certainly had the motive. Let him be uplifted. Let him give some contribution for whatever purpose. For whatever purpose he may, the person might have in mind, let him give something and be benefited. Let him give something and be benefited. Let him get some books. Let him get some understanding. Let's see. Yeah. Srila Prabhupada Panchatattva Post says in his introduction, so according to the statements of Bhagavad Gita or the statements of Arjuna, the person who is trying to understand the Bhagavad Gita, of Arjuna, the person who is trying to understand the Bhagavad Gita, we should at least theoretically accept Krishna, Sri Krishna, as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And with that submissive spirit, we can understand the Bhagavad Gita. Unless one reads the Bhagavad Gita in a submissive spirit, it's very difficult to understand Bhagavad Gita because it's a mystery. So there you have it, that if we at least theoretically accept Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, when we hear Krishna Katha, that counts as a submissive mentality. All right, not challenging. How do you know this isn't all fiction? How do you... That will be not so helpful. But all right, the idea is that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Okay. And I may believe it or not believe it, but at least I'm not opposed to it. At least I'm hearing with that provisional understanding. So that provisional understanding becomes the door to permanent or convinced understanding. All right, give it a fair hearing. Don't come with your prejudiced notions. Give it a fair hearing. Why should I not accept Krishna as Bhagavan, as the Supreme Personality of Godhead? At least for the purpose of the text, he's accepted that way. Arjuna's accepted him that way. As we find in the book itself, he's accepted by great authorities that way. So let me read it that way and see where it takes me. That's submissive. And the submissive hearer will get great benefit. Tulsi Priya. So to be a pseudo-devotee may just be a temporary stage in one's spiritual development. It's not that we are permanently divided into real versus pseudo. Sometimes I get the impression that we can be branded by others into one camp or the other. Maybe I even do that myself. One may even be pseudo, and the pseudo devotee becomes a devotee. Srila Prabhupada told the story of the thieves who heard about Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and how he was decorated with jewels and so on. And they came to Navdeep, and they kidnapped Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. The story is told in Chaitanya Charitamrita. They kidnapped the Lord from his home, and they took him away. But by the Lord's illusory energy, they wound up coming around back to where they started from, and everybody was looking for Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, so they quickly put him down and absconded. So someone asked Srila Prabhupada, those thieves who carried Chaitanya Mahaprabhu on their backs, were they devotees, Srila Prabhupada? And Prabhupada said, at least after they carried Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So their motive was material, to steal from the Lord, but the Lord enjoyed the excursion and they were benefited. We have a godbrother in Bombay, Haridas, who has told many times that he came to steal. He was attracted by Srila Prabhupada's costly watch and wanted to steal it. Instead, he wound up being stolen himself. Saraswati says, I'm a little confused what it means not to hear Bhagavatam from professional reciter, because I know there are reciters of Ramayana or Bhagavatam for 7 days, and the audience seems very immersed. So is that not beneficial? I'm confused to know how to know who's a professional reciter and who's given a donation but is eligible to recite. Prabhupada generally takes a dim view of these professional reciters. Yes, everybody enjoys 7 days of hearing Ram Katha or Krishna Katha, but nothing changes. Their hearts don't change. They don't become detached from material life because the speaker doesn't talk very much about that. The speaker says some sweet words, whatever. But by hearing these topics, how many people seriously change from being focused on material life to being focused on devotional service to the Lord? That was Srila Prabhupada's point, that the main motive of the reciter is to earn a livelihood. This is his occupation. And the main motive of the audience might be to get either some entertainment or some sukriti, some material pious credit, but not to turn toward the real purpose of life, especially if that involves material detachment. So this transformation of heart, as Ananta Shesh Prabhu has mentioned in the chat box, this change of heart takes place when we hear from someone like Shukadeva Swami or someone in his line, from a person whose purpose is to serve the Lord by transmitting the message of the Lord. That will have the potency. That will have the potency. And the person may be given a donation, not be given a donation, but he'll speak the glories of the Lord. And for the sake of doing it, for the sake of glorifying the Lord, for the sake of uplifting the hearers. Whereas the professional is essentially making a business. He's found a nice pious business reciting Bhagavatam, but it doesn't have the same effect. All right, we should stop here. And Krishna Kontiya Prabhu, would you like to lead Kirtan?
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Paripurajaka Stotra Sri Srimad A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Sri Sri Radha Krishna Gopinath Sham Kun Radha Kun Ki Govardhan Ki Jai. Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai, Navadvip Dham Ki Jai, Jagannath Puri Ki Jai, Ganga Mai Ki Jai, Jamuna Mai Ki Jai, Tulsi Devi Ki Jai, Bhakti Devi Ki Jai, Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. Gaur Premanande. Thank you all very much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much, Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Joe Maharaj.
Krishna.
Thank you. And Shatattva and company. Hare Krishna.
Jai. Thank you so much, Maharaj. And Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Srimad Jayadvaita Maharaj Ki Jai.
Hi.
Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda Ki
Hi.
Jai. Gaur Premanande.
Gaur.
Hare